Talk of the Trollway spotlights Mount Horeb, Wisconsin's unique artists, entertainers, hobbyists, and personalities.
There's no single correct path to becoming an artist, and no one should be discouraged if their first attempt isn't a perfect match. For Louise Kubista, the fourth time was the charm.
Light on on this.
She took on the mantle of artist after she retired from the medical field, and inspired by a handful of co-workers and family members, she now makes masterpieces of her own in her Mount Horeb basement studio. I'm your host, Gary Schutz, and on this episode of Talk of the Trollway, Louise emphasizes the importance of trying something new, the benefits of experimentation, and the value of knowing when to stop playing in the paint.
I always enjoyed the sciences, so it was microbiology, diagnosing tuberculosis. There are a lot of quilters in the healthcare field. I'm not sure what the connection is, but anyway, I did get into quilting. Through the quilting, I ran across a fiber artist who painted on fabric, and I really enjoyed her work. She was teaching a class in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, and I thought, you know, that was close, that was something I could get to. So I took a class from her, and I fell in love with the painting, putting the brush to the fabric and seeing what came about. So that was my first experience with painting, and that got me interested. So I came home, bought watercolor paints, brushes, papers, the whole works, and that was the beginning of my painting. And I found a teacher in Madison that taught on a regular basis, and I studied with her for a couple years, and I learned a lot of basics from her and that apply to all painting. And but watercolor wasn't quite the right fit for me. There were things about watercolor that were difficult for me, and one was saving the whites. You don't have a white paint. You have to save the white of the paper to be the white in your painting. Well, that called for a lot of planning, and I just wanted to get in there and start painting. So I started looking at other media, and I tried acrylics, and they dried too fast. I took them out painting outside, and before I could get the paint to my canvas, the paint was drying on the brush. So I thought there had to be something else. So I tried pastels, which I dearly love to work with. However, there's dust, and there's a breathing hazard, and I didn't have a well enough ventilated studio. So outside they're fine, but inside they weren't quite the answer either. And then during, a pastel class I was taking, the teacher was also teaching oil painting. It was a 3-day workshop. And I did pastels for the first 2 days, and then she suggested I try oils. And so I bought some paint and brushes, and it was it. It just felt so good. I thought I'd finally found the medium that I was comfortable with. I've always, I've either sewn or knit or gardened or, did creative things. And I think this was just one more way of being creative. Art for me is the learning process. I love to have a challenge and find a solution. And there are a lot of challenges in a painting. And when I come upon a solution or do something that makes a difference in that painting, that's what excites me. It's sort of a meditation. It's focusing on something. It's a learning process. It's easier than sitting down and reading a book and trying to learn something. It's just a different way of learning to do something. And if I wind up with a nice painting at the end, that's a bonus. Okay, that'll do. I usually start by setting up a still life. And that may take, 20 minutes or 2 hours to just decide on what I'm going to paint. I will take my palette. Right now I'm using a picture frame with glass in it, and then I back the glass with some gray paper. It's easier to mix colors on a gray background. I will decide on if I'm going to paint on canvas or masonite, and what size, and that, whatever's in my still life is probably going to dictate that. I will draw what I'm going to paint on the canvas, either with charcoal or by mixing a paint up to get a dark line, or if I'm working on a black background, then I'll go with something light. Sometimes I use pastel to sketch out my drawing. I start laying in the darks, like the shadows, cast shadows, or the backside of something that's not lit. I'll start laying in color. I start with a warm yellow and a cool yellow, a warm blue, cool blue, and warm red and cool red. After you've mixed them enough, you know what your basic colors are going to be. And these are things I've learned by doing color charts and through workshops. To a point on my palette, it is experimenting with, how much it's going to take to get just where I want to be. But it's through practice and trying different things that I have an idea of where to go to get what I want. See, if I'm doing a larger still life, that's going to take me a number of days. And maybe I'm stuck on something and don't, quite know what the solution is. I will work on a smaller painting, maybe of that subject that I'm having difficulty with, in a smaller painting. Or maybe I'm just tired of it and I'll go on to something else. But I usually try to stay with it. And if I'm doing a larger painting, I will bring it up, set it on the mantle, and walk by it and, glance at it. And maybe there's something bothering me about it, but I can't figure out what it is. And maybe one of these glances is going to tell me, what's wrong with it. And then I can take it back downstairs and work on it. Now with oils, if it started to dry, I will add medium, usually like linseed oil or something, and then work back in it. I can paint over what's there. So, even if it's 2 years later, I can go back on a painting. When I get to that point when I think I should do a little more, I quit. It's finished. Because I know when I do that, I start playing in the paint, and start messing it up. I've had this conversation with artists too. Do you decide your style? Does your style come from you? And many of us believe we paint like we paint because that's the way we paint. We don't decide, this is going to be my style. Maybe you can decide you're going to paint abstract or realistic, but what happens, happens. I don't know, I don't have the words for it. I'm painting in my basement. It's always in the back of my mind that I've got to get down there and paint, because if I don't paint, things don't go well the next time I try to paint. So I do have this need to get down there and do it so I can do it. I know I have to keep painting if I want to improve, if I don't want to fall back. I need to get down there and paint. Once I get down there, I thoroughly enjoy it. Inspiration, comes from workshops and being around other artists, or going to a museum and seeing beautiful artwork. That's where my inspiration comes from. There's a lot of openings, art openings. I try to go to some of those. I don't hit all of them, that's for sure. And sometimes just picking up a magazine and seeing artwork I like, or going on the internet. There's Daily Paintworks, which is a site that I follow, and I do submit artwork to that on occasion. And there's always something there that is inspirational. So it's more of what I run across daily instead of trying to go seek out something. There are a lot of artists in the Mount Horeb area, which is it's a nice community to be a part of. I'm not sure what encourages other people, but I know for me, knowing that there are other artists here and there are people to communicate with and to share your ideas with is appealing. And I've not met a person in the art community in this area that has ever withheld information. I mean, they're willing to share what they do. And it's a very comfortable feeling. I belong to a group, we're called Art Mates, and we get together once a month and critique each other's work. And many times I will take something I'm working on and I get answers to my questions. It's just wonderful to have other artists look and help you with what you're doing. I get very sad when someone says, I can't do art. People can do art. It's wanting to do it and practicing. They can't do it because they haven't done it. It's not because they aren't able to do it. I think talent is an overrated word. To me, talent is perseverance and practice. If you want to do something, you can do it. I've never had the belief that I couldn't do something. It depends on where you want to take it and what you want to do with it. Just to sit down and paint or draw or something is so satisfying. The end product doesn't really matter. You know, it's the focusing, it's the meditation that comes from doing it that is so, that's where I find the joy. And I like other people to experience that.
Coming up on Talk of the Trollway, it could be you or someone you know. Let us know who we haven't met yet. Email talktrollway@gmail.com. Talk of the Trollway runs daily on Trollway TV, Mount Horeb, Wisconsin's village cable station.